If your own daughter told you that you were no longer welcome in the house you paid for, would you stay silent, or would you finally take your power back? Tonight, I'll tell you how one decision changed my entire life and destroyed a Christmas they'll never forget. Where are you watching from? Tell me in the comments. My name is Marianne Dalton. I am 58 years old, a mother, a widow, an accountant, and until recently, a woman who believed that love meant giving without limits. I learned too late that giving without limits turns you into the easiest person to erase. It started on December 15th at 3 in the morning. My phone vibrated beside my bed, the blue glow cutting through the darkness. It was a message from my daughter. Isabel, Mom, I know you paid $280,000 for the house, but my mother-in-law doesn't want you at Christmas dinner. I hope you understand. I read it once, then again, and again. Each time it cut deeper. I stared at that glowing screen until my chest ached. Outside, the neighborhood Christmas lights flickered softly, mocking the heaviness settling inside me. I slipped out of bed, walked to the window, and let the cold glass rest against my forehead. I had bought that house for her and her husband, Ethan, because I wanted them to start their life together with stability. Something I had never had. I had worked 32 years, saved every nickel, and poured $280,000, nearly everything I had, into giving them a home big enough for the children they planned, with a yard, sunshine, and space for love. And yet, somehow I was the problem. I typed one word back, understood. But what they didn't know, what no one except my lawyer and I knew, was that the house was still in my name. I had paid every cent. I had signed the deed. They lived there because I allowed it. And now they were telling me I wasn't welcome in the house I bought. Something inside me shifted that night. Something small at first, a crack, but one that would widen until it changed everything. I didn't reply again. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I simply decided I wasn't going to that Christmas dinner, and neither would they, at least not in the house they believed was theirs. But that was only the beginning. 4 years earlier, when Isabel had first introduced me to Ethan, I had been happy for her. He was polite, ambitious, well-spoken, a young civil engineer who talked about blueprints and long-term plans with the confidence of a man who knew where he was going. The day they came to announce the engagement, Isabel wore a light blue dress and glowed like a woman in love. She wanted me to meet Ethan's parents, Arthur and Lydia. I cooked a full spread roasted turkey, mashed potatoes, the green bean casserole my own mother passed down to me. I set the table with the embroidered tablecloth I used only for important occasions. They arrived exactly on time. Arthur was warm, friendly, and appreciative. Lydia was polite in the way a knife is polite, sharp without needing to touch you. Such a cozy home, she told me, smiling in that way rich women smile when they want you to know you're beneath them. Not beautiful, not lovely. Cozy. She barely touched the turkey. "Oh, I have a sensitive stomach," she murmured, fanning her chest with manicured fingers. "I can't eat heavy dishes." She said it loudly enough to make sure I heard, but I smiled anyway. Mothers do that. We swallow insults to keep peace for our children. At the wedding, I paid for Isabel's dress, a stunning 5,000 gown she had dreamed of. Lydia planned the reception at an extravagant ballroom filled with white flowers and golden lighting. Everything was perfect, except the part where Isabel and Ethan thanked only his parents in their speech. Isabel glanced at me from across the room, guilt flickering in her eyes. I raised my glass and mouthed, "It's fine." But it wasn't fine. Yet I stayed quiet, because silence, I believed back then, was love. Months later, when Isabel asked me to help them buy a house because they couldn't afford the down payment, I didn't hesitate. "How much do you need?" Those were the only words I said. They needed $280,000, and I gave it. I worked over 3 decades for that money. Early mornings, bus rides, overtime hours, simple living, careful saving. But giving it to my daughter felt worth it. She deserved a better start than I ever had. When we toured the house, 3 bedrooms, a sunny kitchen, a yard with a lemon tree, she walked through it with wonder. She told me one bedroom was for me, for when you want to stay over, Mom. This house is yours too. I believed her. I put the house in my name, on the advice of my lawyer, with Isabel and Ethan listed only as residents. Isabel accepted it easily. Ethan didn't. One night, while making coffee in their kitchen, I overheard him on the phone with Lydia. "Yes, Mom, I know the house is in her name. No, we can't say anything. Without her money, there is no house." That was the first warning. I ignored it. Then came the slow decline. The distance, the smaller conversations, the missed calls. My weekly visits became inconvenient. My cooking became unnecessary, and my room, the one she promised me, became a storage closet with boxes, old clothes, and an exercise bike. When I showed up with a homemade cake, Lydia wrinkled her nose. Oh, what a shame. I already brought a dessert from a French boutique. I stood there holding my cake, watching it become an afterthought. Every month brought a new sting. The Sunday brunches I wasn't invited to, Lee traditions replaced, Lee excuses piling up, when my food losing its place in the fridge to Lydia's labeled glass containers. When my birthday dinners canceled, Lee, and Isabel wanting to please her mother-in-law more than she wanted to respect her own mother. I swallowed it all. But December brought the final blow, learning that Lydia didn't want me at Christmas dinner, in the house I paid for, broke something inside me that could not be fixed. Not by apologies. Not by time, not by pretending, and that was the night I decided to stop being small, to stop being silent, to stop letting my daughter and her mother-in-law push me into the corners of my own life. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I didn't throw a scene. I simply acted, because sometimes the quietest women create the loudest consequences. I didn't sleep the night after Isabel told me her mother-in-law didn't want me at Christmas dinner. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw flashes of all the small humiliations I had quietly endured. I saw Lydia's smirk as she dismissed my cooking. I saw the empty space on the mantel where Isabel once kept a photo of the two of us. I saw my room in their house, once promised to me, filled with boxes and old coats like an afterthought. It was strange. For months, all of this had hurt like a knife twisting slowly. But now something had changed. The pain was still there, but beneath it was a new feeling, clarity. At 2 a.m, I got out of bed, turned on my laptop, and opened the folder where I kept the documents for the house. There it was, the deed with my name, the contract showing Isabel and Ethan were only residents, the bank transfer record of the 280,000 I had given them. I printed everything, placed the papers neatly into a folder, and set it on my dining table. My hands trembled, not with fear but with the calm focus of someone who finally understood her worth. The next morning, I met my lawyer, Mr. Carter. He was in his 60s, kind eyes behind thick glasses, the sort of man who never rushed a client. When he finished reading my documents, he looked up. "Marianne," he said gently, "you are the sole legal owner of this property. You can do anything you want with it, sell it, rent it, reclaim it. Isabel and Ethan have no legal rights to the house." I exhaled slowly. "If I want to sell it immediately, you can. Quickly, in fact, if we list it for a lower price, a cash buyer would close fast." "How fast?" "Before Christmas, possibly." That was all I needed to hear. "Do it," I said. He studied my face. "Are you sure? This is your daughter's home?" "No," I said quietly. "It's my house. They're just living in it." He nodded solemnly. "I'll begin immediately." The next days felt unreal. It was like moving through water, heavy but steady. For the first time in years, I wasn't reacting emotionally. I wasn't crying in secret or wondering what I should have done differently. I was simply taking back what was mine. On the 18th of December, Mr. Carter called. "I found a buyer," he said, "a real estate investor. He's offering $265,000 cash. He wants to close on December 23rd. I closed my eyes. A lump formed in my throat, not regret, not fear, but something close to liberation. "I accept." "Are you sure?" he asked once more. "Yes," I said, my voice steady. "I'm sure. And the eviction notice, prepare it. I want it delivered on Christmas Eve at 6 p.m. He was silent for a moment. Then, understood. I hung up and sat quietly in my dining room. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe fully. Like a weight was lifting that I didn't even realize I was carrying. That same evening, Isabel messaged me. "Mom, you're coming to Christmas dinner, right? We expect you at 7. We expect you." Not, "I want you there." Not, "I miss you." Just an obligation, like checking a box. I typed back, "Of course, my love, I'll be there." She had no idea what was coming, what I was reclaiming, what I was ending. On December 21st, my sister, Emily, called me. "Isabel told me you're coming for Christmas," she said cautiously. "Are you really going?" "Wes. And are you okay?" "I'm fine," I said, and for once it was true. On the 22nd, I went to their house to collect the few belongings I kept in my room. Isabel wasn't home. I walked upstairs quietly. The room was even more cluttered than before. Dusty boxes, old sweaters, a broken fan. My pillow and blanket were still tossed on the bed from my last visit. As I folded them, I realized something painful but true. This room had never been mine, not really. I packed everything into a single bag. That was all I had left in the house I bought. And I walked out without looking back. On December 23rd at 10 in the morning, I signed the papers to sell the house. The young investor slid a cashier's check across the table. The number, 265,000, stared back at me. I touched the edge of the paper gently, almost reverently. It wasn't just money. It was the end of being taken for granted. The end of being invisible, the beginning of choosing myself. The buyer shook my hand. We'll take possession in January once the tenants vacate. Tenants. That's all Isabel and Ethan were now. Tenants who had to leave a house they never paid for. After the signing, I returned home and sat alone in my living room. The Christmas lights from my small tree glowed softly, and for a moment, tears finally came, not of sadness, but of release. I wrote myself a letter, folded it, and tucked it into my dresser. It was only 3 lines. You did not fail as a mother. You only failed to protect yourself. Today you stopped failing. On December 24th, Christmas Eve, I woke up before dawn. The city outside was still dark, still quiet. Usually, I'd be preparing Isabel's favorite mashed potatoes, humming to old carols while the kitchen fogged with warmth. But today, I brewed a cup of coffee and sat in silence. No traditions, no expectations, just calm. At 10 a.m., I visited my lawyer and collected the eviction notice, crisp and official. It felt heavier than paper, like closure. At 5 p.m., as the sky turned orange, I dressed in a navy dress, brushed my hair, put on the silver earrings my late husband had gifted me. I looked in the mirror one last time. Not a victim, not a burden, not an outsider, a woman who finally chose herself. At 6:25 p.m., I stood at the front door of the house I used to own. Through the windows I could see the glow of Christmas lights, hear laughter, smell roasted turkey. All prepared by Lydia, no doubt. I knocked. Ethan opened the door, smiling wide, wine glass in hand. "Marianne, Merry Christmas?" I walked in. Calm, steady, certain. The living room was full. Lydia, Arthur, 2 cousins, Isabel hurrying out of the kitchen in an emerald dress. They all looked so comfortable, so sure of themselves, so confident this home belonged to them. And for the next 30 minutes, I watched them laugh, talk, tossed, and take up all the space in a house built from my sacrifice. At 7 p.m., they all moved to the dining table. 6 chairs, 1 missing. Mine. Lydia lifted her glass in a self-appointed toast. "To family," she said proudly. "And to this beautiful home." That was the final line. I stood quietly from my seat. "Excuse me," I said softly. No one even looked up. I stepped into the hallway, pulled out my phone, and sent 1 message to my lawyer. "Proceed." 10 minutes later, the doorbell rang. Ethan went to answer it. He returned pale as paper. "Isabel," he whispered, "there's someone here for you." She stepped into the hallway, opened the envelope. "Read." Her scream echoed through the house, and for the first time in a long time I felt nothing but peace. Isabel's scream froze the entire room. The music stopped, conversations died mid-sentence, and every head turned toward the hallway, where she stood holding the eviction notice with shaking hands. Her face went from confusion to horror to something I knew too well: panic. She stumbled a step backward, clutching the paper like it was burning her fingers. "Mom, what is this?" she whispered, her voice cracking like a child again. I didn't rush to comfort her. I didn't reach out. I simply watched her. The daughter I loved, the daughter I raised, the daughter who had slowly pushed me to the edges of her life. "It's exactly what it looks like," I said quietly. "A legal notice. You and Ethan must vacate the property." Lydia was the first to speak, storming forward in her usual dramatic, entitled fashion. "This is absurd," she snapped. "This house belongs to them." "No," I replied, turning my eyes to her. "It never did." Ethan looked pale, terrified. He took the letter from Isabel's trembling hands and read it. His lips moved silently over the words, his face sinking deeper with each sentence. You sold the house," he choked. "Yes," I answered simply. But we live here. You lived here because I allowed it." Lydia's face twisted in outrage. "How dare you do this on Christmas Eve? How dare you humiliate my son?" "Your son," I said calmly. "He was living in a house he never paid a cent for. Not 1 mortgage payment, not 1 tax bill. Your son has been enjoying my money and my generosity while you dismissed me from holiday dinners in the home I bought." Lydia opened her mouth, but for once in her life, she had no words. Ethan finally found his voice. Marianne, we didn't know. Isabel never told me the house was fully in your name. That was a lie. I saw it in his eyes. The same flicker of guilt I had detected years ago when he whispered into the phone, "Without her money, there is no house." He knew. He always knew. He just thought I would never take it back. Isabel sank onto the stairs, shaking. "Mum, why didn't you tell us you were planning this?" I crouched slightly so I could look her in the eyes. "You taught me something, Isabel," I said softly. "You taught me that when someone feels unwanted, they leave." Her mouth fell open. "I never said I didn't want you." "You didn't have to," I replied. "You replaced me with Lydia long before this night." The room fell into a heavy, brittle silence. Then Arthur, Ethan's father, stepped forward. He had always been the reasonable one. "Marianne, please, is there any way to fix this? Anything we can do?" I looked at him sincerely. "Arthur, I respect you. You have never been unkind to me. But this is not about you. And this is not a punishment. This is a boundary." He nodded slowly, almost understanding. But Lydia finally snapped. "You're cruel," she spat. "Heartless. You're ruining Christmas." I straightened my posture and said calmly, "No, Lydia, you ruined Christmas the moment you decided I wasn't welcome in my own home." That was when Isabel burst into tears. Loud, uncontrollable sobs that filled the living room. She held her face in her hands, shaking her head over and over. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she cried. "Mom, I swear, I thought you didn't mind. You always smiled. You always said it was fine. You never complained. And that," I said gently, "was my mistake." She lifted her face, eyes red and desperate. "So you're really kicking us out?" I didn't soften, not this time. "The new owner takes possession in January. You have 30 days to leave." Ethan looked at the floor, defeated. Lydia muttered curses under her breath. Arthur rubbed the back of his neck and sighed heavily. The warmth in the room was gone. Christmas lights blinked weakly behind us, like they knew the celebration was over. I picked up my handbag slowly, quietly. "I wish you both well," I said, "but I won't be treated like an outsider in a life I helped build." Isabel reached out suddenly, grabbing my wrist. "Mom, please. Don't go. Stay. At least have dinner." Her voice was trembling, her grip fragile. For years I had begged silently to be included, to be valued, to be seen. But now, I looked at her with calm, steady eyes. "No," I whispered. "I'm going home." Her grip loosened, her hand falling away. No one tried to stop me after that, not even Ethan, not even Lydia. They were frozen, stunned, defeated, and finally realizing the reality they never imagined would come. As I stepped outside, the cold night air wrapped around me like an embrace. Snowflakes drifted softly from the sky, landing on my hair, my coat, my lashes. It felt like the world was quietly applauding the moment I reclaimed myself. I walked down the driveway I paid for, and didn't look back. Halfway to my car, I heard footsteps crunching on gravel. I turned to see Arthur jogging after me. "Marianne," he called softly. I waited. He stopped a few feet away, breathing lightly, his face remorseful. "I'm sorry," he said, "for everything. They shouldn't have treated you like that." I nodded once. I believed him. He was a good man trapped between a domineering wife and a son who learned the same habits. "I know this doesn't fix anything," he continued, "but if you ever need help with anything, please call me." I gave him a faint smile. "Thank you, Arthur. I appreciate that." He looked back at the house and sighed. "They'll learn from this, or they won't. Either way, you did the right thing." And he walked away. I drove home slowly, the radio playing soft carols that used to comfort me. Tonight, they felt different, bittersweet but freeing. I turned up the heat, watched the city lights blur outside as snow began to fall harder. My phone buzzed repeatedly. Isabel calling, Ethan calling, messages pinging nonstop. "Please talk to me. Mom, please. You can't do this. Why didn't you tell me? We're sorry. Please don't leave us homeless. We'll talk in the morning." I placed the phone face down. For the first time in years, I chose silence for myself, not for them. When I reached my house, I changed into warm pajamas, lit a candle, and made myself tea. The quiet was soft, peaceful, without expectation. I sat on the couch and took a deep breath. I thought of the years I had poured into my daughter's life. The bedtime stories, the school lunches, the doctor visits, the college tuition, the wedding dress, the down payment. I had given everything, and she had forgotten that love has to be mutual. But I wasn't grieving anymore. I wasn't angry. I wasn't broken. I was steady. My life wasn't ending. It was finally beginning again. I turned off the lights and let the soft glow of the candle illuminate the room. Snow fell thick outside, painting the night white and quiet. I pulled a blanket over myself and closed my eyes. Christmas Eve, the first one I would spend alone, was the most peaceful one I'd had in years. Tomorrow would bring consequences, conversations, maybe apologies. But tonight belonged to me. Christmas morning arrived quietly. No alarm, no rush, no obligation. Just the soft glow of winter sunlight slipping through my curtains. It was the first time in years I didn't wake up to a list of things demanded of me. No cooking, no cleaning, no rushing across the city to attend a family gathering where I was barely acknowledged. My phone had dozens of messages. Isabel, Ethan, even Arthur. Not a single one from Lydia, of course. I ignored them and made myself a simple breakfast. Scrambled eggs and a slice of toast. I sat by the window watching snow drift over the street. It felt peaceful. It felt right. I was finally living a morning for myself. Around 11 a.m., my phone rang. This time, I answered. Mom. Isabel's voice was groggy, broken, like she'd been crying all night. Yes, Isabel. Can we talk? I'm listening. A shaky breath. I didn't mean for things to get this bad. I leaned back in my chair, and yet they did. I know, she whispered. But I could hear something else in her voice. Fear, yes, but also entitlement fighting to stay alive. She wasn't calling just because she missed me. She was calling because reality had arrived at her doorstep, wrapped in the shape of an eviction notice. Mom, please don't do this. Not to us, not now. You remove me from your life, I said calmly. I'm simply stepping out of the place where I was no longer wanted. You were always wanted, she said, voice breaking. Mom, I swear. No, I said gently. I was tolerated. The silence on her end confirmed it. She finally said, Can we at least talk in person? Tonight, please. I hesitated before agreeing. 7 p.m. at my house. She whispered, Thank you? She hung up before I could say anything else. I spent the afternoon cleaning lightly, not because I needed to impress her, but because order soothed me. Around 6:30, I lit a candle and made tea, and at 7 p.m. sharp, the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, Isabel stood there bundled in a coat, her face red from crying. She stepped inside timidly, looking almost like a stranger in my doorway. She sat on the sofa like she wasn't sure she was allowed to. That alone told me how far apart we had drifted. Mom, she began softly, I didn't think you cared. That sentence hit me harder than anything else. You didn't think I cared? I repeated. Isabel, I bought you a house. Her eyes filled again. I know that. And I'm grateful, I swear. But you were always so calm, so quiet. I thought you didn't mind when things changed. Silence isn't the same as acceptance, I said. I stayed quiet to keep peace, not because I was okay. She wiped her cheeks. I shouldn't have let Lydia take over everything. I should have stood up for you. Yes, I said simply. You should have. It was the first time I had ever spoken to her without cushioning the truth, and she didn't run away from it. She sat there and took it. That meant she was trying at least. Mom, can you cancel the sale? She asked finally. No. She inhaled sharply, as if the word punched the air out of her lungs. But where will we go? Have jobs, I said. You have income. You can rent. Buy something smaller. Build something that belongs to you. We can't afford anything right now, she whispered. You couldn't afford the house I bought either, I said, and yet you treated me as though I was the one who didn't belong there. She looked at me with wide, wounded eyes. I'm sorry. I believe you, I said, but apologies don't undo the past. She covered her face again, crying silently. Mom, I don't want to lose you. And here was the delicate part, because in the past those words would have made me rush forward, reassure her, fix everything. But this time, I stayed still. You're not losing me, I said. You're losing a house I paid for. You're losing the comfort of my sacrifices. But me, I'm still here. I'm just not willing to be mistreated anymore. She nodded slowly, painfully. Can we rebuild? She asked. I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. We can try, I said. But trust takes time. She exhaled, relieved but still heartbroken. Okay, I understand. What she didn't understand, not yet, was that the eviction wasn't revenge. It was a boundary. A line I should have drawn years ago. When Isabel left, she hugged me tightly. Really hugged me the way she hadn't in years. It was warm and trembling, both apology and longing. "I love you," she whispered. "I love you too," I said. That part had never changed. After she left, I sat in the quiet again. My house smelled like vanilla from the candle, and the air felt soft, uncomplicated. Later that night, my phone buzzed with a message from Arthur. "Thank you for talking to her. She needed that. I hope you have a peaceful night." I did. For the next week, Isabel and Ethan began their search for a new apartment. It wasn't easy. They had grown used to living in a home far above their means. The real world felt harsher when comfort wasn't free. And Lydia did what Lydia always did. She complained loudly, blamed everyone but herself, declared me a villain, and insisted her son was a victim. It didn't matter. I no longer lived in a world where Lydia's opinions had power. One afternoon, while cleaning, I found a box of old photographs. Isabel as a toddler, her missing front teeth at age 6, her high school graduation, her wedding day. Every memory was touched with love and sacrifice. I smiled at them, not with sadness but with acceptance. Motherhood doesn't end when children grow up, it just changes. And sometimes the change is painful but necessary. On January 5th, the moving truck pulled up to their driveway. I didn't go. Isabel texted me a picture of her in an empty living room, her eyes tired but calmer. "We're all moved out. Can I come over tonight, just to talk?" I replied yes. That night, she arrived with less makeup, fewer defenses, and more honesty. "Mom," she said, curling her legs under her on my couch, "the new place is small, but it's ours. Really ours. And weirdly, I feel something I haven't felt in years." "What?" I asked. "Grateful." Her voice cracked softly. "And Mom, I'm sorry I made you feel like an outsider. I'm sorry I didn't protect you from Lydia. I didn't know how much I hurt you." This time, her apology felt real, not panicked, not desperate. Real. I took her hand gently. "We'll rebuild from here," I said. "Together." Slowly, respectfully. She nodded, tears in her eyes but a small smile on her lips, and in that small apartment she now lived in, something fragile but meaningful began to grow again. Not convenience, not dependency, but a new kind of love. Love with boundaries. Love without sacrifice becoming expectation. Love that didn't require me to shrink to fit into her world. Later that night, before she left, Isabel hugged me again. But this time the hug wasn't out of fear, it was out of love. January passed with a stillness I had never experienced before. After the chaos of Christmas Eve, the shouting, the tears, the shock, the house sale, and the eviction, my world quieted. Too quiet almost. But in that quiet, I relearned myself. I had spent so many years orbiting around Isabel's needs, her emotions, her crises, her choices, her comfort, that I had forgotten what it was like to wake up and consider my own. Now I woke up at my own pace, made breakfasts I enjoyed, watched the sunrise from my kitchen window, and took slow walks every morning. With each passing day, the guilt I carried, the old, suffocating kind that mothers are trained to live with, began to fade. Isabel and I spoke often, but gently. Not the rushed, obligatory calls we used to have, where she treated our conversations like chores. Now she called with intention. One morning she showed up at my door unexpectedly. "Hi, Mom," she said, holding 2 coffees. I raised an eyebrow. "What's the occasion?" "No occasion. I just wanted to sit with you." We settled on the couch, sipping coffee. She looked smaller somehow, not physically but emotionally. Softer, like life had peeled away a layer of entitlement and left someone humbler behind. "How's the new place?" I asked. "Cluttered," she laughed. "Leaky faucet. No dishwasher. Tiny closets. And how do you feel about that?" I asked. She looked down at her coffee, swirling it. "Honestly, it feels real, like life isn't happening to me. I'm living it." That answer softened something inside me. "And Ethan?" I asked carefully. She hesitated before speaking. "He's adjusting." Slowly, he's embarrassed. "Why?" I asked, though I already knew. She met my eyes. "Because he never thought you'd take the house back. He said he assumed you'd always be there to help us." I nodded slowly. "Isabel, love without boundaries becomes masseuse." She swallowed hard. "I know. I didn't see it. But I do now." After she left that day, I sat on the couch for a long time, thinking. People change when life forces them to see themselves clearly. Losing the house had done that for her. It had pulled the curtain back on the comfort she took for granted. But I also wondered about Ethan. Days later, I found out. It was a Thursday afternoon. I was returning from the grocery store when I noticed a familiar car parked near my driveway. Ethan stepped out, hands in his pockets, awkward and hesitant. "Marianne," he said, clearing his throat. "Ethan." He offered a stiff smile. "Can we talk?" I gestured for him to follow me inside. He sat on the edge of the couch like it might bite him. "I want to apologize," he said, voice tight. "Not just about Christmas Eve, about all of it." I folded my arms gently. "Go on." He ran a hand through his hair. "I should have been honest. I knew the house was in your name. I knew you paid for everything. I pretended it didn't matter because it made me feel like I wasn't providing for my family." I said nothing. I let him speak. "I shouldn't have let Lydia treat you the way she did. I shouldn't have let Isabel follow her lead. I should have stood up, but instead I acted like the house was ours just because we lived there. I'm sorry." It wasn't a perfect apology, but it was honest. That mattered. "Thank you," I said. He nodded, nervous. "So, can we move forward?" I shook my head gently. "Individually, yes. But as a unit, as we were before, no." His shoulders sagged slightly, but he didn't fight it. That alone told me he had learned something. He stood awkwardly. "Well, thank you for listening." I walked him to the door. "Take care of Isabel. But remember, she's learning to take care of herself too." And for once, he didn't argue. When he left, I felt another quiet shift in my life. A final severing of the invisible strings that tied me to their marriage, their decisions, their expectations. The next weeks were a strange mix of peace and adjustment. Isabel visited often, usually after work, sometimes for dinner. We cooked together again. Simple meals, not the elaborate feasts I used to slave over. She didn't act like a guest. She didn't act like she was entitled to anything. She just existed beside me, learning who I was again. One evening she arrived with a notebook. "What's that?" I asked. She sat across from me. "Mom, I've been thinking about everything. I want to understand where things went wrong." I blinked. That was new. She opened the notebook, revealing lists. "Actual lists. Times you helped us," she said. "Things you sacrificed. Moments I ignored you. Things Lydia said. Times I didn't defend you." I wrote everything I could remember. My throat tightened. "Isabel." She held up a hand, tears already gathering. "No, Mom. I need this. I need to see it. I need to face it." She wasn't doing this for guilt. She was doing it to grow. To confront her own blindness. She wiped her cheek. "I want you to know something. Losing the house, it hurt. It shocked me. But it also woke me up." I reached across and took her hand. "You don't have to punish yourself. We're moving forward." She squeezed my hand. "And Mom, I'm proud of you." That sentence, that simple sentence, unraveled me. I hadn't heard words like that in years. After she left that night, I sat in the quiet of my living room, staring at nothing and everything at once. The house no longer echoed with regret or resentment. It held something new, possibility. Mid-January arrived, cold, crisp, white, and then something unexpected happened. I received a letter in the mail. The return address was elegant, embossed, from Lydia. My stomach tightened. I carried the envelope to my couch, sat, and opened it carefully. Inside was a single sheet of thick paper. Her handwriting was surprisingly neat, surprisingly controlled. The message was short. "Marianne, I still disagree with your decision, but I acknowledge that I did not treat you with respect. For that I apologize." Lydia, I stared at the note for a long time. Was it perfect? No. Was it sincere? I wasn't sure, but it was something, a crack in her armor, a sign that maybe, just maybe, the ripple of change had reached her too. I placed the letter in my drawer, not to treasure, but to remember. To remember that boundaries don't just protect you, they teach others how to treat you. Toward the end of January, Isabel visited again, this time with a nervous smile. "Mom," she said, sitting beside me. "Talk to Ethan, truly talked, and we're going to start therapy together. Marriage counseling." "That's a big step," I said. "We need it," she admitted. "We want to do better." I nodded. "I hope it helps." She rested her head on my shoulder like she used to when she was little. "Mom, thank you." "For what?" "For saving me," she whispered. "From myself, from comfort, from complacency, from thinking love didn't need boundaries." My eyes softened. "I didn't save you, Isabel. I saved myself, and that showed you the way." She smiled, tears in her eyes. "Either way, I'm grateful." That night, after she left, I stood by the window watching the snow fall gently under the streetlights. My reflection stared back, older, wiser, calmer. I didn't just reclaim a house, I reclaimed my life, my dignity, my voice, my place. and for the first time in years I didn't feel alone in the world. February arrived colder than usual, but inside me something warm had settled, a quiet rising, like the slow return of sunlight after a long winter. The chaos of December felt distant, like a story someone else had lived. Yet the lessons were carved into me deeply, reshaping everything I believed about motherhood, boundaries, and self-respect. Isabel and I were rebuilding something fragile but real, something honest. She visited often, not out of habit but intention. Sometimes she brought groceries, sometimes flowers, sometimes just herself. And every time she walked through my door, she came with gratitude instead of assumption. One evening, she arrived with a cardboard box. "What's that?" I asked, setting down my book. She placed the box on the table and opened it gently. Inside were items that once filled the house I had bought her. A framed photo of the three of us at her graduation, the ceramic mug I used during visits, a silver pen her father had gifted me long ago. "I wanted you to have these back," she said quietly. "I found them while unpacking. I realized none of it felt right in our new place unless you gave it to us willingly." I touched the photo frame, running my thumb along the glass. "Thank you," I said softly. In her eyes, I saw something I hadn't seen in years: respect. She helped me place the items around my home, and for once, it felt like she saw my life as separate from hers. Not an extension, not a convenience, but a life of its own. When she left, she hugged me long and tightly. "We're getting better, Mom," she whispered. "Yes," I replied, "we are." Over the next couple of weeks, I watched her grow in ways I hadn't expected. She asked for advice without demanding solutions. She told me about therapy sessions, the uncomfortable truths, the small breakthroughs. She began setting boundaries with Lydia, something she had never dared to do before. And she defended me, fiercely, without shame. One afternoon, she told me Lydia tried to trip her about the eviction. I told her. Isabel said, lifting her chin, "Mom deserved better. And if you can't understand that, then you don't understand me." Hearing that from her made my chest ache. The good kind of ache, the healing kind. Even Ethan had changed. Not dramatically, not completely, but noticeably. He was quieter, the arrogance stripped away like worn paint. When he visited with Isabel one evening to return a few kitchen items of mine, he spoke carefully. "Thank you for hearing me out the other day," he said. "I'm trying to be better. For Isabel. For myself." I nodded politely, but inside, I felt no resentment. The anger had drained from me long ago, replaced with something clearer: detachment. Not coldness, but peace. He wasn't my responsibility. He never was, he never will be. A few days later, I received a call from the new owner of the house. "The investor, Mrs. Dalton," he said. "The renovations are done. If you ever want to stop by and see the place before we list it, I'd be happy to show you around." I hesitated but eventually agreed. Walking through the house again, freshly painted, empty, silent, felt surreal. The walls no longer held memories of me being dismissed, ignored, or pushed aside. The rooms felt clean new, detached from the past. The place had become what it always should have been: a house, not a symbol of my sacrifices. When I left, I felt lighter than I had in years. By late February, so much had changed between me and my daughter that even I could hardly recognize us. We talked often, not out of obligation but out of choice. We cooked together, we laughed together, and for the first time in a long time, she listened. One evening, she knocked on my door again. "Mom," she said warmly, stepping into the living room, "I have to tell you something." I raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" She sat beside me, her hands clasped nervously. "I've been thinking a lot. About what you did. About everything that led us here. And I realized something." I waited. "You didn't just take back a house," she said. "You took back your voice, your dignity, your place in your own life, and you showed me how to take back mine too." My eyes softened. "Isabel," she continued, "I want to build my life on my own now, not on what others give me, not on what's comfortable. I want to work harder, earn things, respect boundaries, respect you." She took my hand, holding it gently. "You didn't lose me, Mom, you woke me up." My heart swelled, slow, warm, full. I brushed her hair behind her ear the way I used to when she was a child. "I never wanted to lose you," I said. "I only wanted you to see me." "I do," she whispered. "Finally, I do." We sat together in the quiet, the kind of quiet that holds peace instead of distance. And in that moment I understood something profound. The greatest revenge is not anger, not punishment, not destruction. The greatest revenge is rebuilding your life so powerfully that those who hurt you are forced to face themselves. I didn't destroy Isabel's life. I handed her the mirror she had been avoiding for years, and she chose to look into it. I kissed her forehead gently. I'm proud of you. She closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks. I'm proud of you too, Mom. For the first time, we hugged not as mother and daughter bound by duty, but as two women who had finally learned how to see each other clearly. That night, after she left, I walked to my window and looked out at the street glowing under streetlights. Snow floated softly through the air, settling on rooftops, lawns, branches. Peaceful, gentle, pure. I realized something then: losing yourself for your children isn't love. Teaching them how to love you back, that is love. Teaching them how to stand on their own, that is love. And standing up for yourself, that is love too. I closed the curtains, turned off the lights, and went to bed with a peaceful heart. Christmas had taken a home from Isabel, but it had given her wisdom, and it had given me back myself. A fair trade, if you ask me. If you felt every emotion in this journey, hit that like button and subscribe for more real revenge stories told from the heart, and tell me, what part of this story hit you the hardest?